7 years. 7 years since the night Miguel carried his son out of that house and swore to himself he would never look back. From now on, it's just you and me, buddy. The small apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that only came after midnight in a working-class neighborhood. Miguel sat on the edge of Leo's bed, his large hand gently stroking the boy's dark hair as the 7-year-old drifted toward sleep. The heater hummed softly in the corner, fighting the winter chill that pressed against the thin windows. Then it came. Knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp raps on the front door. Miguel froze. He glanced at the clock on the nightstand, 11:47 p.m. No one knocked at this hour. Not in this building. Not unless something was wrong. Leo stirred, rubbing his eyes with small fists. Dad. Who is it? Miguel placed a finger to his lips. Stay in bed, mijo. I'll check. He stood, heart already hammering against his ribs, and moved silently down the short hallway. His hand closed around the doorknob like a reflex, the same protective instinct that had kept him and his son alive these past 7 years. Knock, knock, knock. Louder this time, more urgent. Miguel took a breath and pulled the door open. The cold air from the hallway hit him first, then he saw her. A woman stood under the flickering hallway light, soaked from the rain outside, trembling so violently her teeth chattered. Her blonde hair hung in wet, tangled strands across her pale face. Her coat was too thin for the weather, and her hands clutched the strap of an old backpack like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Miguel's world stopped. Even after 7 years, he knew that face instantly. Rosalia, the woman who had vanished without a word, the woman who had left him to raise their son alone, the wife who had become a ghost. She looked up at him with eyes full of exhaustion and something far deeper desperation. Miguel, her voice cracked barely above a whisper. I just need 1 minute. Miguel's grip on the door tightened until his knuckles turned white. 1,000 emotions crashed through him at once: shock, rage, pain, disbelief. He wanted to slam the door. He wanted to scream. He wanted to ask why she had disappeared and left their 4-year-old son crying for a mother who never came home. But before he could speak, soft footsteps padded behind him. Leo appeared in the hallway, barefoot, clutching his worn teddy bear to his chest. The little boy blinked sleepily at the stranger standing in their doorway. Dad. Who is she? Rosalia's gaze dropped to the child. The moment her eyes landed on Leo, something inside her shattered. Her lips parted. Her breath hitched. Tears flooded her eyes, instantly spilling down her pale cheeks. Leo tilted his head, studying her with the innocent curiosity only a child could have. Are you my mom? The question hung in the freezing air like a blade. Rosalia's knees buckled. She pressed a hand to her mouth as a broken sob tore from her throat. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice fracturing. I'm so sorry. Miguel's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. His voice came out low, cold, and trembling with years of buried pain. 7 years! And now you show up at my door in the middle of the night to say you're sorry. Rosalia shook her head, tears streaming faster. No, it's not just to say sorry. She took 1 shaky step forward, her voice dropping to a broken whisper as if terrified someone else might hear. I came back because there's a secret. If you don't hear it, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Miguel stood frozen, hands still gripping the door frame like an anchor. Leo clutched his teddy bear tighter, eyes wide with confusion and something like hope. And every listener's mind was now completely locked on one single burning question. What secret could be so devastating that a mother who disappeared for 7 years would return in the middle of the night soaked and shaking, just to say, "You will regret it for the rest of your life if you don't listen"? Miguel remained rooted in the doorway like a wall of stone. He did not step aside. He did not invite her in. The woman who had once been his wife stood trembling on the worn welcome mat, rain still dripping from her cold eyes, pleading with a desperation he had never seen in her before. Leo stayed behind his father, small fingers clutching the back of Miguel's shirt, peeking out with wide, uncertain eyes. Rosalia wiped her wet cheeks with the back of her hand. "You can hate me," she whispered, voice raw. "But please, don't let Leo hate me before he knows the truth." Miguel gave a short, bitter laugh that held no warmth. "The truth. For 7 years, the only truth I've known is that you disappeared." Rosalia swallowed hard, drawing in a shaky breath, as though gathering every last ounce of courage she possessed. "I didn't disappear because I wanted to." Miguel's voice dropped to ice. "Then who made you disappear?" Rosalia hesitated for a single heartbeat, then spoke the first layer of the secret soft as a breath, yet sharp enough to make the air freeze. "Layer 1. I was forced to leave. I was forced to leave the city," she whispered. Miguel's body went rigid. "Who forced you?" Rosalia glanced nervously down the empty hallway as if afraid someone might be listening. "Someone with power. I can't say the name here." Miguel's hand tightened on the doorframe until the wood creaked. "You show up at my door in the middle of the night and tell me you can't say the name. You expect me to believe that?" Rosalia's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I'm not asking you to believe me right now. I'm only asking you to listen." Behind Miguel, Leo tugged gently at his father's shirt. "Dad, is Mom scared?" Miguel didn't answer, but Rosalia looked straight at the little boy, and her voice broke completely. "Yes, sweetheart. Mommy is scared." That single sentence, "Mommy is scared," landed like a weight in the quiet hallway. Layer 2, I was sick, and I hid it. Miguel's jaw clenched. "Tell me straight. Why did you leave?" Rosalia took a trembling breath and slowly pushed up the sleeve of her wet coat. A long faded scar ran across the inside of her wrist, pale now but impossible to miss. Miguel stared at it. "What is that?" Rosalia's voice cracked. "I was in treatment. I was very sick." Miguel froze. "What kind of sickness?" She shook her head, eyes squeezing shut for a moment as if the words themselves hurt. "I didn't want you to see me like that." Miguel's voice rose sharp with years of buried pain. "So you abandoned our son because you were afraid of looking bad?" Rosalia's shoulders shook with silent sobs. "Not because I looked bad, because I was wasting away." The word "wasting away" sent a chill through the hallway. The second layer had been peeled back. "Layer 3, I tried to come back, but someone stopped me." Miguel refused to soften. "If you were sick, you could have called. One phone call. That's all it would have taken." Rosalia reached into her coat pocket with shaking fingers and pulled out an old cracked phone. The screen was shattered. She opened the gallery. Dozens of photos appeared, all of Leo. Taken from a distance, Leo at the school gate, Leo playing in the park, Leo blowing out birthday candles with only Miguel and Teresa beside him. Miguel's breath caught. "You've been watching him." Rosalia shook her head, tears streaming faster. "I wasn't allowed to appear. But I came back. Many times, Miguel's voice turned to steel. Who stopped you? Rosalia's answer was barely audible. They threatened me. If I showed up, they said you would lose custody of Leo. Miguel felt the floor tilt beneath him. That was the deepest fear of any single father losing his child. Layer 4, I chose to suffer alone so our son wouldn't be dragged into it. Miguel's voice dropped thick with pain. You were sick. You were forced. You were threatened. But why didn't you tell me I wasn't a stranger? Rosalia's entire body trembled. Because if I had told you, you would have fought them. You would have lost your job. You would have lost Leo. She spoke each word like a nail being driven into wood. I chose to disappear, so you and Leo could live in peace. Miguel stood completely still. The man who had spent 7 years hating the woman who left him suddenly felt something far more complicated, a terrible, crushing understanding. She hadn't left because she stopped loving him. She had left because she was trying to protect them. Layer 5, I came back because time is running out. Rosalia clutched the strap of her backpack so tightly her knuckles turned white. Miguel, I don't have much time left. Miguel's blood ran cold. What are you saying? Rosalia drew in a shaky breath, her voice barely holding together. My illness, it came back. This time, I'm not sure I can win. Leo, who had been listening silently, suddenly burst into tears and ran forward, wrapping his small arms around his mother's legs. Mommy, don't go away again. Rosalia dropped to her knees and pulled her son close, her whole body shaking with sobs. I don't want to go, but I had to tell the truth, before it's too late. Miguel stared at the woman on her knees, holding their son as if the world might rip him away at any second. For the first time in 7 years, the wall he had built around his heart gave the smallest, most painful crack. But the night was far from over, and the deepest secrets had yet to be revealed. Rosalia was still on her knees, arms wrapped tightly around Leo as the little boy sobbed into her shoulder. Miguel stood frozen a few feet away, chest rising and falling like he had just run miles. The weight of her words, I don't have much time left, still hung in the air like smoke. Then came the sharp knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Miguel's head snapped toward the sound. Rosalia's face went deathly pale. Leo clutched his mother harder. Miguel crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled the door open. Teresa stood there, breathing hard, her coat thrown on over pajamas, eyes already blazing with alarm. I heard crying from downstairs, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. What the hell is... Her sentence died the moment she saw Rosalia on the floor with Leo in her arms. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Teresa's expression shifted from concern to ice in a single heartbeat. Well, she said coldly, look who finally decided to crawl back from whatever hole she disappeared into. Rosalia rose slowly to her feet, still holding Leo's hand. Teresa! I don't. Teresa cut her off, voice sharp as a blade. Don't say my name like we're still family. You lost that right the day you walked out on a 4-year-old boy and left my brother to pick up every single piece alone. Miguel stepped between them. Teresa, no Miguel. Teresa snapped eyes, never leaving Rosalia. 7 years. 7 years of watching you break every single night when Leo asked why Mommy didn't come home. 7 years of you working double shifts so he could have shoes that fit. 7 years of me holding him when he cried for a mother who never showed up. Rosalia's lips trembled. I know, she whispered. I know what I did. Teresa laughed bitterly, but there were tears in her eyes. You know. Then tell me why I should let you stand in the same room as my nephew right now. Leo looked up at Teresa, tears still rolling down his cheeks. Aunt Teresa. She says she's my mom. Teresa's face softened the moment she looked at the boy. She knelt quickly and opened her arms. Come here, sweetheart. Leo hesitated for half a second, then ran into his aunt's embrace. Teresa held him tightly, stroking his hair. You don't have to decide anything tonight, okay? The grown-ups need to talk. Let's go to your room for a little while. Leo nodded against her shoulder, but glanced back at Rosalia one last time. Mommy, you're not leaving again, right? Rosalia's voice broke. I'm not leaving. Teresa shot Rosalia one last warning look before leading Leo down the hallway. The bedroom door clicked shut. The apartment suddenly felt smaller. Teresa returned alone, arms crossed, standing like a judge ready to deliver a verdict. All right, she said, voice low and controlled. You wanted to talk. So talk. And this time, no vague stories about being forced or sick. I want facts. Rosalia wiped her face with shaking hands. I was sick. Very sick. I didn't want Miguel or Leo to watch me die. Teresa's eyes narrowed, and instead of telling the father of your child the truth, you chose to vanish. That's not love. That's cowardice. Rosalia flinched but kept going. I came back multiple times, but someone made sure I couldn't stay. Teresa stepped closer. Who? Rosalia hesitated. Teresa's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. If you came here to play games, I swear I will put you back on that street myself. Rosalia looked down at the floor. My mother. The word landed like a bomb. Miguel's head jerked up. Teresa stared. Your own mother. Teresa repeated, disbelief thick in her voice. The same woman who used to brag about her perfect daughter? She forced you to disappear from your own son. Rosalia nodded, tears falling silently. She said if I stayed and got sicker, Miguel would lose everything trying to save me. She said the courts would take Leo away because I was unstable. She said she was protecting him and protecting me from becoming a burden. Teresa laughed, once a harsh, painful sound. So she decided to break two hearts and one little boy instead. That's not protection. That's control. Miguel finally spoke, voice rough. Why didn't you fight her? Rosalia met his eyes, exhausted and broken. Because I was weak. Because I believed her when she said you'd be better off without me. Because I was terrified that if I stayed and died, Leo would grow up watching his mother waste away in a hospital bed. She took a shaky breath. I chose to disappear so he could remember me as his mother, not as a dying patient. Teresa stared at her for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter but no less firm. Apologies don't erase 7 years. You don't get to walk back in here and expect everything to be forgiven just because you're sick again. Rosalia lowered her head. I know. Teresa glanced at Miguel, then back at Rosalia. I'm not asking you to forgive her tonight, Miguel. I'm asking you to listen to the whole truth. Because if there's even a chance Leo can have his mother back without it destroying him. You need to know everything. She paused, then added the line that cut straight to the heart of every listener. But forgiveness isn't free. And it sure as hell isn't automatic. The apartment fell into heavy silence. Then Teresa's eyes dropped to the floor where Rosalia's bag had spilled open earlier. A thick envelope lay half hidden under the couch. Teresa picked it up. Her face changed the moment she saw the official seal. She pulled out the documents and scanned them quickly. When she looked up again, her voice had lost all its earlier fire and was replaced by pure shock. This is a restraining order, a court order banning you from contacting Leo. She turned the paper toward Miguel. Who the hell filed this against his own daughter? Rosalia's shoulders collapsed, and the deepest layer of the secret was finally about to break wide open. Teresa held the official document in her hands, her fingers tightening until the paper crinkled. Miguel stepped forward and snatched it from her. His eyes scanned the cold legal language, and every muscle in his body went rigid. Temporary restraining order, prohibiting contact between Rosalia Alvarez and minor child Leonardo Alvarez. Miguel's voice came out like gravel. Who the hell filed this against you? Rosalia backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. Her face had gone ghostly white. Please, don't read any more. Teresa's eyes flashed with fury. You came here in the middle of the night talking about being forced, being threatened, being sick, but you conveniently left out the part where someone took you to court to keep you away from your own son. Rosalia covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. I didn't want you to find out like this. Miguel slammed the paper down on the table so hard the sound cracked through the apartment. Tell me who did this. Right now. Rosalia's voice was barely a whisper. My mother. The silence that followed was deafening. Teresa stared at her, stunned. Your own mother filed a restraining order to keep you away from Leo. Rosalia nodded, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. She told the court I was unstable, that my illness made me unfit, that if I stayed I would destroy Miguel's life and Leo's future. She said she was protecting the child. Miguel laughed once, a broken, painful sound. Protecting him. By ripping his mother out of his life, Rosalia slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, knees drawn to her chest. I was so weak back then. The chemo, the surgeries. I believed her when she said I would only make things worse. So I signed everything they put in front of me. Teresa's voice was low and dangerous. You let your mother erase you from your son's life. And you never once tried to fight back. I tried, Rosalia whispered. I came back 3 different times. Each time she had someone waiting, lawyers, private security. They made it very clear what would happen if I didn't disappear again. Miguel's hands were shaking. And you never thought to tell me any of this. Rosalia looked up at him, eyes shattered. Because if I had told you, you would have gone to war for me, and my mother would have destroyed you in court. She had the money. She had the connections. I couldn't let Leo lose both of us. Before Miguel could respond, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the apartment. Knock, knock, knock. Everyone froze. Teresa moved first, stepping protectively in front of Leo's bedroom door. Miguel walked to the entrance and yanked the door open. A man in his late 40s stood in the hallway wearing a long, dark coat and carrying a leather medical bag. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were sharp and professional. I'm sorry to intrude, he said calmly. I'm looking for Rosalia Alvarez. Miguel's body tensed like a coiled spring. Who the hell are you? The man pulled out an ID card. Dr. Roberto Alvarez, I'm her oncologist. Rosalia's voice came from behind Miguel, small and broken. Roberto, you shouldn't have come. Dr. Alvarez stepped inside without waiting for permission. His eyes found Rosalia immediately, and something softened in his expression. Concern mixed with something deeper. I told you not to do this alone, he said gently. You're not strong enough for this kind of stress right now. Miguel turned slowly, staring at the doctor, then back at Rosalia. You know him. Rosalia closed her eyes for a moment. He's been treating me for the last 4 years. Teresa crossed her arms. So while my brother was raising your son alone, you had a personal doctor following you around? Dr. Alvarez raised a hand. I'm not here to argue. I'm here because her condition is deteriorating. If she continues like this, the emotional strain, the lack of proper medical care, she may not have much time left. Miguel felt the floor tilt beneath him. Cancer, he asked, voice hoarse. Dr. Alvarez nodded. Stage 3 recurrence. We caught it early this time, but the treatment is aggressive. She needs stability. Rest. A safe environment. He looked directly at Miguel. I offered her a place in the city, full medical support, a quiet apartment near the hospital. She refused. Rosalia spoke before Miguel could. Because I'm done running. Dr. Alvarez stepped closer to her, voice softening. Rosalia, please. You don't have to prove anything anymore. Let me take care of you. The words hung heavy in the room. Miguel's jaw tightened as he watched the doctor reach out and gently touch Rosalia's shoulder, the gesture far too familiar, far too tender. Rosalia looked up at Dr. Alvarez for a long moment, then carefully removed his hand from her shoulder. Thank you, she said quietly, for saving my life more than once. But I can't go with you. Dr. Alvarez's face fell. You're choosing this? He asked, gesturing around the small apartment. Rosalia looked past him, straight at Miguel. I'm choosing my family. The doctor exhaled slowly, then reached into his bag and pulled out a thick folder. If you won't come with me, at least let me give you the full truth before I leave. He opened the folder and placed several documents on the table. These are the original court filings. The person who requested the restraining order wasn't just your mother acting alone. He looked straight at Miguel. It was a coordinated effort. Someone with significant influence made sure Rosalia could never come back. And that same person made sure you would never know why she left. Miguel's voice was dangerously quiet. Who Dr. Alvarez closed the folder? The same person who paid for Rosalia's first round of treatment in secret, and then used her illness as leverage to keep her away from you and Leo. He paused, then delivered the final blow. It was your mother-in-law, Miguel, and she didn't do it alone. The room went deathly still. Leo's small voice suddenly came from the hallway. Dad, is Mommy staying? Miguel turned. His son stood there in his pajamas, teddy bear dangling from one hand, eyes wide with fear and hope. And in that moment, the weight of every choice, past and present, pressed down on Miguel's shoulders like never before. He looked at Rosalia, then at the doctor, then back at his son. The decision he made next would change all of their lives forever. Miguel stood motionless in the center of the small living room, the weight of every revelation pressing down on him like stones. The doctor's words still echoed in his ears. Rosalia's own mother had orchestrated the restraining order. The woman who should have protected her daughter had instead used her illness as a weapon to tear their family apart. Leo's small voice cut through the silence like a knife. Dad, is Mommy staying? The little boy stood in the hallway, teddy bear dangling from one hand, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fragile hope. Miguel looked at his son, the child he had raised alone through sleepless nights, fevers, first days of school, and every single moment of doubt, and felt something inside him crack wide open. He walked over and knelt in front of Leo, placing both hands gently on the boy's shoulders. "Leo, listen to me," Miguel said, his voice rough but steady. "Tonight is complicated. There are things Mommy and I need to talk about. But I promise you this, no one is leaving tonight. You're safe. We're all safe." Leo searched his father's eyes for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Teresa stepped forward and took his hand. "Come on, little man. Let's get you back to bed. The grown-ups have a lot to figure out." As Teresa led Leo away, the boy glanced back one last time at Rosalia. "Mommy, you'll be here when I wake up?" Rosalia's voice broke. "I'll be here." The bedroom door clicked shut. Now only Miguel and Rosalia remained in the dimly lit living room. Rosalia stayed on her knees, shoulders trembling, waiting for whatever verdict would come. She looked smaller than Miguel had ever seen her, not the confident woman he had married, not the ghost who had haunted his dreams, but simply a mother who had carried 7 years of unbearable choices. Miguel remained standing. "From us. You let them convince you that from us. You let them convince you that disappearing was the only way to protect Leo. You made me raise our son believing his mother didn't want him." Rosalia nodded, tears falling freely. "I know." Miguel took a slow, painful breath. "But I also know what it feels like to be so scared of losing him that you would do anything, even destroy yourself, to keep him safe." He looked down at her. "I'm not ready to forgive you tonight. Maybe not for a long time. But I'm not going to punish Leo by keeping you away from him. He deserves to know his mother. And you deserve a chance to prove you've changed." Rosalia pressed a hand to her mouth, a sob escaping. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not closing the door completely." Miguel helped her to her feet. For the first time in 7 years, their hands touched without anger. "We do this slowly," he said firmly. "For Leo, not for us. He comes first. Always." Rosalia nodded, gripping his hand like a lifeline. "I understand. The days that followed were not easy. There were no fairy tale endings or sudden forgiveness." Rosalia moved into the small guest room Miguel prepared. She woke early every morning to make breakfast, helped Leo with homework, and sat quietly in the living room while Miguel watched her from across the room, still guarded, still healing. But every night before Leo went to bed, Rosalia read him a story. And every night Leo asked the same question, "Mommy, are you staying tomorrow?" And every night Rosalia answered the same way, "I'm staying." Weeks turned into months. The tension in the house slowly softened. Teresa visited often, still protective, but no longer hostile. "Doctor." Roberto called once to check on Rosalia's health, then respectfully stepped back when she made it clear where her heart now belonged. One quiet evening in early spring, after Leo had fallen asleep with his head in Rosalia's lap, Miguel asked her to step outside with him. They stood on the small back porch under a sky full of stars. The wooden steps creaked softly beneath their feet. Miguel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box he had carved himself over many late nights in the garage. Rosalia's breath caught as he opened it. Inside lay a simple ring, made of polished walnut wood. It was smooth, warm, and strong, just like the man who had made it. On the inside band, Miguel had carefully carved a single word, Leo. Rosalia's eyes filled with tears. Miguel took her hand gently. "I'm not asking you to forget the past," he said, voice low and steady. "I'm asking you to build a future with me. Not because everything is perfect, Not because the pain is gone, but because I choose to try. For Leo. For us. For the family we can still become. He slid the wooden ring onto her finger. It's not gold or diamonds, it's just wood. But it's real, like us. Rosalia looked at the ring, then up at the man who had once been her husband and was now choosing to become something new. I don't deserve this, she whispered. Maybe not, Miguel replied softly, but Leo does. And I'm willing to believe we both can earn it. She stepped into his arms, resting her head against his chest as the first spring rain began to fall softly around them. Inside the house, Leo slept peacefully, unaware that the family he had prayed for every night had finally begun to heal. 7 years of pain, 7 years of silence, and one wooden ring that carried the promise of tomorrow. Sometimes the bravest thing a parent can do is open the door at midnight. Sometimes the hardest thing is learning to trust again. And sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones that begin perfectly. They're the ones that begin with a knock in the dark and the courage to answer.